to stress ratios. If you don't know what we're talking about, I'm talking about insulin to carb ratios, but for stress. It's going to be a complicated topic. Excited to jump into this one with you guys because I know no one else talks about this kind of stuff. A lot of doctors' offices stick to the more routine kind of advice, generic cookie cutter. You're one of many, and we're not going to customize anything. So today I want to go into how can we dose for stress? Should you? And maybe if you didn't know it yet, how stress might impact blood sugars. Today we're also looking at unpredictable blood sugars and how you might adapt your strategies to face that level of uncertainty. If you don't know who I am, my name is Matt Vandevecht. I'm a certified master fitness trainer and nutritionist. And fantastic fact about me, I live with type 1 diabetes. It's a good time. If you don't have it, you're missing out. But today I'm excited to chat with you guys about this because I know it's not covered in depth. And so I wanted to walk in through kind of a few strategies and open up the Q&A box. Good to see all you guys on Instagram. I see you on Facebook and YouTube. So we'll start off with just making sure this mic is working. Hit a 1, the number 1 in the comments, just to let me know that you can in fact hear me. And then we'll be able to jump into our topics for today. Once I start seeing some of those ones, we're going to start asking what you guys have experienced in the realm of stress. So I got one. All right, we got one on Facebook, one on Instagram. Appreciate you guys. Awesome. So we know it is working. So stress, I want to walk you guys through my weekend coming up. This weekend coming up, I've got a triathlon sprint that I am competing in, and it's my first one ever. I don't know what to expect. I'm not even going to pretend to know what to expect, but I know there's going to be a certain level of stress as it surrounds this event. One, because of uncertainty. 2, because of nerves, right? But 3, I want to win. And that's going to be part of my stress as well. I don't know if I will. Probably not, if I'm being completely realistic with myself. I just kind of spontaneously said yes to this impulsively, but I've been giving it my all, and I intend to do so on competition day as well. So super pumped about that. But alongside that comes this topic of stress. Now, I've been chatting with a lot of other triathletes who have type 1 as well. And I've actually heard a few stories of people who typically go low when they exercise. They get to competition day, the day to go compete in the triathlon. And at the starting line, they watch their blood sugars go from 110, like, all right, cool, we're at a good spot for starting the race, all the way to 400. And having to start the race with taking multiple units of insulin and then wondering, am I going to drop because of all this insulin on board? Is the stress going to continue and I get, ketones and develop DKA? What's going to happen? And so oftentimes stress can be this underlying factor that just really wrecks our blood sugars. And so I wanted to spend some time on this because I do anticipate it being a potential factor in my blood sugar plan for my race this weekend, but also recognize that all of us are impacted by stress with our diabetes, right? We've got stressful meetings, stressful relationships. When you don't sleep enough, you're more likely to get stressed. Your body feels the stress. You don't recover as well. And then you think about the other side of stress. I'm actually walking a few of my clients in our Warriors Inner Circle through this, how stress is not always bad. Right? The stress that we put our bodies through in a workout, that's stress, but it's good for us. And so it's like, wait a second. There's good stress, there's bad stress, but it's all going to impact our body and our blood sugars in a slightly different way. So as we look at today specifically, the quote unquote bad stress, right? A stressful meeting, maybe finances are tight, maybe there's a relationship that's on the rocks. Maybe there's just a lot of drama in your friend circle. Whatever the stress is, it can impact blood sugars in kind of a gnarly way. And so as we look at that, is there a way to measure stress and get an actual number associated with this so that we can dose as if it were something like an insulin to carb ratio? Now, the straightforward truth, I'll give it to you, is no. There is no metric that we can assign to have that level of consistency within the measurement of our stress, right? How do you tell if it's a 9 stress or a 7 stress? Because ultimately, all of us are going to have a different rating scale that we perceive stress as based on our previous experiences with stress. So an example of that would be, for me, training for this triathlon sprint, my level of perceived stress to my body is way different than it used to be when going for a single mile run used to stress me out, like my body, right? I've grown accustomed to that. So somebody who is used to having a really high stress job, think about a CEO of a major Fortune 500 company, their familiarity with stress, it makes them more accustomed to it. So they might rate that scale a bit differently than somebody would who works at Starbucks, right? Very different. And so as a result, there is no cookie cutter approach. This cannot be applied to the large scale population of type 1 diabetics everywhere. But on an individual scale, we can self assess, right? We can identify a really stressful event. Is this something that I know is going to impact my mood, my blood sugars, my sleep abilities, right? My sleep quality. And if so, how do I then counter that impact on the blood sugars with insulin or other strategies? So now that we got that out of the way, all stress is different. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. It's going to look different for everyone. Within type 1 diabetes, I want you guys to start understanding that there are ways to manage blood sugars in stressful situations, but I don't want you to expect to have perfect blood sugars all the time. Okay. So, with stressful situations, the issue is that there's a good chunk of the time that we don't know when life is about to get stressful, right? You walk into work and you have no idea that your boss is about to quit and the whole company is going to go bankrupt. What? That's crazy, right? How would you expect that? You come home from work. Maybe work is fine, but you have no idea that your significant other had a really rough day. And just because, emotions are a little bit hectic at that point, they're going to take it out on you and introduce stress. You have no idea if you're going to hit massive traffic and it's going to make you super late to a really important event. So, as such, it's really difficult to keep blood sugars perfectly stable through stressful situations, especially, and here's the caveat, little candle on top of the cake, especially because insulin does not work instantaneously when taken subcutaneously. Right, that's a good phrase for you to remember. It does not work instantaneously when taken subcutaneously. Now, if you have something like, I don't even want, I'll say it, but this isn't medical advice, so don't use it. If you were to take an intramuscular shot, that's going to have a different action, right? It works at a different speed than it would if you were to take it in adipose tissue or fat. So there are ways to manipulate the usage of insulin and to benefit different scenarios, right? But generally speaking, if you get really stressed and you see on your CGM blood sugars are starting to skyrocket, even if you take insulin right there, it's not going to start working right there. It's usually going to be a delayed impact when now I'm 50 points higher and it's starting to work. Oh, but the situation got more stressful and it just keeps going up, right? So, what is a diabetic to do? What can we do, right? And someone asked on Instagram, what can we do when our blood sugars remain high? I love this question. So, and to talk more on that topic as well, there are different strategies we can use outside of just taking more insulin. And we want to avoid insulin stacking or rage bolusing and being irresponsible in that manner because it can lead to the opposite impact, which, in my opinion, I would rather stay away from just a little bit more, which is a crashing low blood sugar. I am not a fan. I hate lows, so much so that I do everything in my power to set up my 80/20 blood sugar formula to avoid lows, which I will say has been quite successful. I'm very happy with that. I think I've gone low once in maybe the last 6 months. And I used to go low like 5 times a day. So it's been a journey. But all that to say, if you remain high, what are some other things we can do, right? We can chug water. That's a big deal. We can go for a walk. Walk can really help to burn glucose, but also to help circulate the insulin we've already got on board. Yes, we can take more insulin. It really depends on like what you've got on board and what your correction factors are, all that fun stuff. Again, not medical advice, but I wanted to touch on that. Okay. We got another person said same question. So when it's high, it's important to have these checklists in mind mentally of what things are causing these higher blood sugars. Is it just stress or did I forget to bolus for lunch? Right. Do I not know my insulin to protein ratio, insulin to fat ratio? Believe it or not, there is a diabetes math equation for every single variable, including activity and food and stress, right? But some of them are more predictable than others. For example, if I plan to go work out, that's a variable that I control. I don't plan to get stressed, which is exactly why I wanted to bring this topic up. Most times, 9 times out of 10, you don't know when to plan for stress, as I have the opportunity to do this weekend with the triathlon sprint, right? I know come Sunday morning, I'm going to wake up and probably just be stressed. That's just going to be what happens. So I have strategies in place to help bring my stress levels down. So that is one option. If stress is the key source of the higher blood sugars, is to manage the actual core of that issue, right? The actual variable itself. So breathing exercises, visualizations, meditation, focusing on the 5 senses, right? What do I see? What do I hear? What do I taste? What do I smell? What do I feel? I think I said that one already. Whatever else is left, I see the sun shining in the sky. I feel the cold water lapping across my ankles, right? Focusing on those things can help you take you out of that anxious state or stressful state. But aside from that, what's the insulin strategy? Because we also have to consider that. That's going to be a faster response for most people for blood sugars, right? And unfortunately, for stress and a few of the other key variables, it is going to fall more on a reactive formula. So we have proactive formulas and reactive formulas. Now, proactive formula, that's the 80-20 blood sugar formula. That's what it's built for. Like, how do I predict where my blood sugars are going to go based on the activity, the meal, the experience, so that I can plan to adjust that? So if I predict it's going to go low, I'll take an action before it goes low, maybe even an hour before, so that it never does go low. That's why I haven't gone low, because I hate lows. So I set it up to help me avoid them. If I predict it's going to go high, well, I should probably take insulin before it gets there, right? And what can I do to expedite the circulation of insulin? All that kind of stuff. But outside of proactive formulas, we have active formulas, which is crap's already hitting the fan. What can I do now, right? Different methods to this, but understanding what I like to call action threshold. And this is actually something that I walked my clients through last night on one of our coaching calls. It's a really fun concept. And it's a threshold that we can adjust on our own, right? Where we determine at what point do I take action to fix my blood sugar? And it goes both directions, right? If I'm going to go low, am I going to wait until I'm 50 to start eating sugar? No. What if I know I'm going to go low? Why wouldn't I treat earlier, right? To help avoid that situation. Now, there's ways to calculate it and predict it, like with the formulas I talked about. But if anybody just got diagnosed and I said, if you see on your CGM double arrows down at 90, why wouldn't you treat then, right? And avoid the double arrows down at 50. It's a thought. So on the other side of this equation, if I'm entering into a stressful situation, prime example, if I crash my car, well, that wasn't planned, right? But now I'm in this stressful situation and the stress is probably going to continue. And so what can I do? Of course, after assessing everything else and making sure that I'm okay and the other people are okay, but what can I do to manage my blood sugar spike that's likely going to follow from the stress? Now, for me, I determine where my action thresholds are before these stressful events. It's pre-planned. I know on a generic day, if I'm sitting at my desk, at what point do I start to give proactive corrections if my blood sugars are starting to rise, right? A perfect example of this, right before this call, and I was kind of hoping it would do the beep that tells you that I delivered insulin when I started this so I could reference it, but it didn't. My camera took a second to turn on. But I actually took a small micro correction because I was at 138. And some of you hearing this are like, what? You're at 130 and you took a correction? But there's a multitude of factors that go into this. I know I'm going to be at my desk for the next 2 hours, right? I've still got client calls after this. And so for me, in the absence of activity, this is what I would like to take to get myself to a nice smooth spot at like 110 before I eat dinner tonight. So that's the part of the plan. There's a lot more to it, obviously. But if I see that stress is impacting blood sugars in a negative manner, I'm starting to spike, I'm not going to wait until I'm 200 or 300 to start giving corrections. I'm going to adjust my action threshold to better match that situation, right? And it's not just insulin. And again, disclaimer, don't listen to what I have to say. I'm not a medical professional. I'm talking about insulin here and medication dosing. This is my strategies for me, okay? But to give you these examples, if I notice that I'm in a stressful situation, I know stress can equal a rise. So if I see the rise, I attribute that to the stress. Now I have cause for considering a micro correction or some preactive or proactive strategies, right? So in these stressful situations, can you measure their insulin to stress ratio? Yes and no. It's self-awareness that's ultimately going to come from self-assessment to see how stressed am I? What is the situation that I'm in, right? Now, the options that I have, I can give a bolus of insulin. I can adjust my temporary basal if you're on an insulin pump, right? I can also deliver an extended bolus, which can be canceled if it was too much. I can take a manual injection if I'm worried that my insulin pump's not working, right? And these are all just within insulin. And there's also different types of insulin that can be adjusted. So we have a lot of options, but again, these all fall under the reactive formula. Okay, you can't proactively go, I'm about to be stressed, and then take your insulin every single time. Sure, there are some circumstances, like if you're going to take your final for class. For me, if I'm going into race day, like competitions, typically we do run a little higher from stressful activities like that. But what other variables are at play? For me, this triathlon sprint on Sunday, if I'm stressed, but I only rise to 150, I'm not going to worry about it. Why? Well, because I'm going to be swimming and running, or out of order, swimming and biking and running for the next who knows how long. So all that activity is likely going to counteract my stress. So there are some times where you might need insulin, sometimes where you might not. This is going to fall up to you to make that decision. But I wanted to give you an idea of the decision-making framework that I use and how I might adjust that action threshold to help me decide, should I dose for this stress or should I not? Right. So I hope this has been helpful for you guys. Actually, I see we got a bunch of comments here. So jump over here and see what we got. We will be cheering for you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that from Facebook. We got work is stressful. Grin and bear it. Yeah, that's absolutely a big strategy, right? So if work is stressful, but I notice a pattern where work gets stressful, maybe it's just on Mondays, I might take that into consideration with my diabetes management strategies, right? Jennifer on YouTube says, good luck at your race. You got this. I appreciate that. You guys are awesome. Differs farther and your sugars go up. That's stressful too. Yep. We talk about the correction factor needing to be potentially adjusted as blood sugars get higher. That is a possibility, right? Let's see what else we got. It runs high. Yes, when you're stressing. Yes. But if you move, it kind of goes down. Absolutely, Daryl on YouTube. Yes, that's a big factor in what I'm looking at for Sunday's race as well, right? Stress, yes, goes up, but activity might bring it right back down. So maybe I don't take a full correction or any correction. It really depends. Are you still using exercise mode on your T-Slim? Oh, for the race? No, I will not. So there's a lot of reason behind that. But the biggest reason is that with the 80-20 blood sugar formula that I use, I can actually outperform the algorithm. And I know with certainty what's going to happen. Actually, today, and maybe I'll make this into a podcast episode and dive a little deeper, but today marks the final day that I had to pass. We got some motorcycles going by. Sounds fun. Today actually marked my final big workout. They call it a brick workout, where you stack two different workouts back to back. And it also marks 100% of all of my triathlon sprint workouts in 100% time and range. So I have never gone low. I have never gone high ever when training for this triathlon sprint over the last like 3 or 4 months. And the reason that has happened is that I didn't rely on some algorithm. I didn't rely on chance. I calculated it with the 80-20 blood sugar formula. Like that's probably the biggest bragging point on why I use that formula day in and day out, is because with calculations, I go into it and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to work out for an hour, hour and a half. I'm going to go run 5 miles. I'm going to go bike 15 miles, whatever it is. And I know it's going to stay in range. And I wish I could show you my phone. I'm on Instagram too, so it's hard to show you guys anything, but I'll start posting those graphs so you can see. Today, I think I started, what was it? Started the workout at 130. It went up to, I think, 137. And then the lowest I got was 105. No, 103. And so between 137 and 103 the entire time, swam 1,000 meters and ran for 2 miles. And so that was the workout for today. So that's why I will not be using activity mode. It's less predictable than what I can complete on my own. So that's the big thing. Sorry, my team is just blowing me up right now. Let me clear their messages. They're all excited because we just we got to welcome in a few new clients today, and they're stoked on what they're about to do. We actually have a client who's competing in a marathon on Sunday, same time as my triathlon sprint. So we're going side by side, going to compare blood sugars, and I'm looking forward to it. My clients are awesome. You guys have no idea. Are you still on the T-Slim pump? I am. Yes. So I will be using the pump. It is very helpful, but I use the pump manually so that I can make the adjustments that are necessary based on my calculations, right? Diabetes math fixes like 95% of issues. Okay, so Christine on YouTube says, oh man, I make corrections when I hit 125. I hear you. Trying to stay at that 110 mark is my focus. Love it. And there are different phases, right? There are reasons why I might not correct at 125. Like if I'm about to go for a huge bike ride, I'm actually aiming for 120 to 130, right? A little higher. Yes, I've started full triathlon sprint run throughs at 90 or 105, but I prefer to be just a smidge higher, right? I'm encouraged to handle my stress better. Thank you, Matt from Facebook. You got it. Absolutely. So T-Slim is on manual mode. No, correct. Yeah. Yeah. Much about the different types. Oops, the comment just disappeared. Different workouts, cardio versus weight training. Absolutely, Christine on YouTube. Different types of activities, right? Everything consideration. So for my triathlon, and actually in the comments, if it would be helpful for me to do a breakdown of the triathlon sprint, like what I'm thinking through, things that I might be worried about, what are my calculations, if it would be helpful for me to geek out on that, just walk through step by step. I don't want to make it if it's going to bore you guys, but if anybody's curious about the science and maybe the reasons behind my decisions, let me know. I'd be happy to create something for you guys. Let's see what else we got. Thanks. You got it. And yeah, cardio versus weight training. Lots of luck to you, Matt. I appreciate that. So yeah, real quick, let's just do this. If it would be helpful for me to create a resource walking through my mental checklist for diabetes and maybe pre-race thoughts that I'm having, like what I'm thinking through so that I can stay in range and give myself the best chance possible to compete and actually be a competitor with the top people, let me know. Comment the word, what are the words? Let's say triathlon training. That'll be helpful. So if you comment triathlon training, that'll let me know that you guys want to see more of that. Outside of that though, stress, insulin to stress ratios, the unpredictable nature of life. How can we dose? How can we strategize when life is unpredictable? When it's not just stress, but last minute meals, when it's going to be, people right after a meal want to go for a hike or a bike ride. How do you do that? Right? You got insulin on, but you're going to be active with all this variability in the blood sugars. There are ways to stay in range and not just shoot for sky high. I know a lot of people, myself included, the big strategy used to be, oh, if you're going to be active, just aim for like 200, 250, and then it'll come back down naturally, right? The problem is that, yeah, that's a fine strategy once, right? But if that's your go-to strategy where daily or weekly you're shooting up that high, I mean, now we're just stretching out our blood vessels. Every time we do that, it's going to cause, some damage over time for tissues. That's just not something that I was okay with. And so I know some people are fine just kind of flying by the seat of the pants. But if you are somebody who's looking for more of that control, that predictability, but also willing to do the work, like find the calculations necessary. When I go for these workouts, I'm not just going all willy-nilly, like, oh, let's just see what happens. No, I'm like, this happens at this time and I've completed this. Now it's going to stay stable, right? If that sounds even remotely interesting to you, what I want you to do is just type the word coach, and myself or one of my team members will reach out to you, get you some more info on how I do this kind of stuff on a more daily and more in-depth level. I know it's not for everyone. I know that a lot of people are just like, I just want to be good enough with diabetes. But for those of you who are like me, where you're like, I want precision and I want predictability and control and stability, that is what's going to be for you, right? The diabetes math equations, that's how I do this. And it allows me to go out and eat pizza, but also train for a triathlon sprint, right? It's what allows me to be present with my family and also sleep through the night with no alarms. Like that's what I'm after, is putting in a little extra work to get a lot more return. So if that sounds something you want some help with, or even just want info on how we do this stuff, just type word coach out. And like I said, we'll reach out with more info. Maybe send you a training depending on what it is that you're struggling with. And hopefully that'll help you out. Okay. So try not to get stressed unless it's good stress. If you are finding yourself stressed, try to de-stress with some of the strategies we talked about. And if you can't get out of the stressful situation, let's find a way to react appropriately with the right formulas to identify where should that action threshold be? Where should I start making decisions? My trigger respond. Right. So I hope this one's been helpful for you guys. Check the comments real quick. What else we got? Oh, lots more. We got triathlon training. Okay, cool. Maybe I'll make a video on that. The sun plays a role in this too. It does. There's so many variables, you guys. But the more you know, the easier it gets. I can do that. Christine says, so true. Typically going out lower, dealing with higher heats in the sun. Absolutely. I see you, coach, on Facebook. You got it. Are you carrying up for the race? Maybe carbing up, so you meant to say. I already eat pretty high carb, so yes and no. I mean, I eat hundreds of carbs a day and proteins and fats. I eat like a monster. And so I eat everything. And that's what I'll be continuing to do probably, is just continue to eat lots and lots of food, because I burn a lot of calories when I'm working out with these different workouts. I think that might be all of. Oh, we got another coach on YouTube. Cool. So Jennifer, I got you. Earbuds. Let's see what you got. Good music. You know what? That was the biggest bummer. In the triathlon sprint, I was checking the rule book. You're not allowed to listen to music. You can't have earbuds in at all. And so it's just swim, bike, run for like who knows how many hours in silence. I was like, what? You can't even throw on like an educational podcast? This is terrible. But it is what it is. You know, everyone's in that same boat together. Anyways, I got to go, guys. I got another client call I got to hop on, but fun hanging out with you. Remember, let's bring down the bad stress. Good stress is okay, but either way, remember, we got to take these into consideration with our blood sugars and use that framework to try and stay closer in range and not let it wreck or derail your day. All right, so I hope that's been helpful. Again, if you want some assistance or want to know how we calculate these things, drop the word coach in the comments and we'll reach out with some more info. Like I said, maybe send a training or two if it'll be helpful for you, because I want to see you guys win. That is my goal for you. All right, so have an awesome day. I'll catch you guys next week after I'm a triathlete. What? And I hope you guys really enjoy your weekend. Do something fun. Okay, I see you guys on Facebook with Coach as well. We'll reach out. Have an awesome weekend, you guys. See you later.